introducing the meeting, if you want to prep for that. Yep.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Revere School Committee. Please rise to salute the flag.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members.
Mrs. Brunston Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Here.
Mr. Ferranti,
Here.
Ms. Gravelisi,
Here.
Mr. Sinella,
Here.
Ms. Ty, Mayor Arrigo.
Here. The first item on the agenda is public speak.
Arrigo.
Dr. Kelly, do we have anybody in the meeting room?
Motion to close public speak.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say, Ms. Ty had been in the attendees list and not promoted to panelist when the roll call was taken, but she was present and is currently present as a panelist on Zoom.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Ty. Next, we'll go to the superintendent's report. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to begin tonight with several presentations, as we often do. And for the first one, I'm actually going to pass the mic to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Garcia, who is present with a number of the members of the Equity Advisory Board. And they are here tonight to give the committee an update on the work that they've been doing and give some proposed actions that they have worked on over the course of the last year in order to enhance equity in our school district. So without further ado, I will pass it to Dr. Garcia.
Good evening, dear school committee members. It has been a pleasure working with a group of two professionals over the last 8 months or so. The board, as you know, was created by the school committee, and the purpose of the Equity Advisory Board is to examine racial, disability, gender, and religious equity issues in Revere Public Schools. The primary objective of the Advisory Equity Board is to lead the district efforts to become an anti-racist school district and community. The Equity Board, the Equity Advisory Board, through its 11 school-based equity working groups, designs, coordinates, monitors progress, and proposes practice and policy recommendations to school committee members for consideration. I just want to give you a very brief, understanding of how this team has been working. Shortly after the Equity Advisory Board was created, the Revere Public Schools received a COVID-19 anti-Black structural racism, which was through, from Nellie Mae, which was aligned with the district's 5-year improvement plan in the amount of $250,000. This grant has allowed us to work on several training providers, including Great Schools Partnership, Unify Center for Restorative Justice at Suffolk University, Susan Nymark on race, racism, racial equity, community engagement, restorative justice, implicit bias, teacher training, and facilitation. The committee, right from the beginning, the board understood that in order for this work really to be done properly, we needed to develop the conceptual framework. From the onset, that conceptual framework was developed, and that conceptual framework has been guiding our work since that time. And the conceptual framework is nothing more than a flowchart that really outlines the way different stakeholders, including parents, families, caregivers, community partners, and educators interact and communicate with each other to discuss critical problems of practice that affect children and families every day in our public schools and make recommendations for systemic change. The Equity Advisory Board and its working group members have done an extraordinary work that goes above and beyond what I had imagined as a chair of this committee. The board has been meeting every 2 weeks and engaging in profound discussions centered on racism and anti-racist pedagogy, curriculum bias and sensitivity issues, data and accountability, looking for academic and placement course disparities among subgroups, community engagement and public relations, teacher growth and development, and student agency, restorative justice, practice, and social-emotional learning. There are many aspects and achievements of the Equity Advisory Board that due to time constraints, I will not be able to discuss tonight. All I can tell you is that the teachers, administrators, students, parents, and community partners serving on the Equity Advisory Board and the Equity Working Group are really committed to transforming our school system to make it fair and equitable for all students and families. They are awesome and unbelievable professionals. I hope you enjoy tonight's presentation. Without any further ado, I'd like to pass the word to our presenters tonight. Thank you. Next slide. These are the members of the Equity Advisory Board. As you can tell, there are students, there are families, there are caregivers, there are family our family liaisons are represented on this board. There are community partners, there are administrators, there are there's I would say close to 50 people. We created a movement that's really tackling the real issues affecting our school district. Next slide. So we'll start. There are 5 committees. We call those committees racial equity working groups. They are going to present, some of the findings, some of the recommendations, some of the practice they believe that we need to change in our public schools. And I hope that tonight you will see what they are presenting, some interesting, policy recommendations that probably will have to be taken into account. That will probably you will have to take. We all have to take into account to improve our school this coming year. So we'll start with the educator growth and professional development.
Hello, my name is Abel Aklog, and I am a 7th grade student at Garfield Middle School, and I am presenting with Lisa Goldney, a 5th grade math teacher at the Hill. We will be presenting the rationale and recommendations on behalf of the Educator Growth and Professional Development Working Group. Our schools represent the broader community. Whether our students observe incidents of discrimination in the media, in the community, or in our schools, RPS staff needs to be prepared to address these issues and conversations when they come up within our buildings and classrooms. We believe our schools must be a place where all people feel known, safe, loved, and valued for who they are, for their stories and for their identities. The foundation of relationships with students can be strengthened by acknowledging realities of injustice and providing brave spaces for difficult conversations. We acknowledge that RPS staff are at different levels in their professional and personal learning. Our recommendations aim to provide comprehensive opportunities for all staff to adjust and grow by adapting the curriculum, re-examining their biases, and addressing incidents of discrimination in classrooms and improving anti-racism efforts. In order to develop our teaching staff to become more anti-racist and keep this work a priority, our aim is to systematize this learning so as embedded into our existing educator growth systems and professional development. Next slide, please. Our plan is to offer a menu of professional development opportunities for all RPS staff focused on educator interest in areas of improvement identified by data from the equity audit. Offer equity-based collaborative PLG time focused on increasing teacher self-efficiency in regards to teaching marginalized groups of students. Encourage educators to select an equity-focused goal for their next evaluation cycle. Include at least one equity-focused student learning goal in professional practice goal developed using equity audit data and the menu of options on the educator group side. We see this as kind of like a pyramid, an upside-down triangle. Well, all RPS staff, voluntary PLG groups, individual choice, data-based PD menu, equity-based PLG time, and educator growth goals. Next slide.
Hi, so Stacy's not here, so I will be speaking for Stacy. For what we've been working on is in recent years there has been a big push in our country led by educators and multicultural education organizations to reevaluate classical literature books that depict racist imagery and stereotypes that affect our BIPOC students and their families. It is worth emphasizing that this push is not only limited to curriculum materials, but should also include handbooks and other written policy to ensure our student body are not being held to inequitable discriminatory standards. I'll pass it back to Stacy.
Hi, can you guys hear me now? Okay, thank you, Hannah. My name is Stacy Mulligan. I am the principal at Seacoast High School. Like Hannah said, we're presenting today for the Bias and Sensitivity Review Committee. Our committee has 3 recommendations for the school committee moving forward. Our first is the curriculum audit. Hannah, did you want to read the rationale?
Yes. While we believe that there are several books, curriculum materials, and policies in our school district whose purpose-driven content must be re-examined for biased language and stereotypes, Dr. Seuss books are the ones that have been heavily scrutinized for having intense racist imagery and stereotypes.
So there are a few bullets under recommendation number 1. First, we would like to review the instructional and curriculum materials K through 12, update syllabi across all levels to better reflect our student body, create an auditing system to ensure added materials are high quality and culturally responsive, and create a process for all stakeholders to suggest materials to be audited. The third bullet is most important for recommendation number 1. Oftentimes, if there is materials in our curriculum that is racially insensitive, it depicts racist imagery, oftentimes we don't know about it until it's already been implemented by the classroom teacher. We embedded a few links here for the committee to look at other districts around the country that are using auditing systems. The idea is for students and families to have a way to report something in the curriculum that they are unsure about. This auditing system would go directly to faculty and directors, so there would be a way to address any issues prior to it happening in the classroom, or if it did happen in the classroom, to immediately address it. I'm going to have Hannah share a quick story about a situation that she had with one of the books required reading in the sophomore, or I think, or junior class.
Yeah. So it's the Persepolis book, and throughout the book there are several graphic texts that are misleading and portray Islam as the oppressor instead of the Iranian government. And as a Muslim student, it made me feel extremely uncomfortable and unsafe. And it feels like we as Muslims are being marginalized, and that the book is targeting only one religious group. I've talked to multiple practicing Muslim students that have expressed their concerns about the book and how targeted they felt being the only Muslim in the classroom. I actually was in a situation where a classmate, after reading the book out of context, stated that the countries of Syria and Iran are terrorist countries. Students already have this depicted image of the Islamic religion being an extremist and oppressive religion, and this book only further adds on to this narrative. Thank you. I'll pass it back to Stacy.
Next slide, please. So recommendation number 2 is an extension of the curriculum auditing recommendation. Hannah, would you like to read our equity stance?
Yes. So as a diverse community, we repudiate textbooks and materials containing ethnocentric, xenophobic, and stereotypical languages that implicitly or explicitly denigrate the history, culture, identity, and experiences of our students and families. We believe that the richness of a school community lies in its ability to include a wide range of views and perspectives, including literature that considers children's race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, and lived experiences.
So our committee has the two following recommendations. First, to discontinue using those 6 Dr. Seuss books identified by the National Education Association and by the Dr. Seuss Foundation. The 6 books were And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, McGillicuddy's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Egg Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. We understand that the national debate has really politicized what this is, but if the foundation no longer has them in print and the National Education Association does not believe that they're helpful and they think they're harmful to children, we think that Revere should follow suit as well and remove those books from our school libraries and classroom libraries. Our second recommendation is the Read Across America Day. It is heavily focused on Dr. Seuss, and we would like to change that from being so Dr. Seuss focused to a more inclusive event to include families with diverse books, languages, and cultures to spread the joy of reading. Next slide, please. Our final recommendation is policy and procedure. Hannah, you can read the rationale.
Yeah. Okay, so handbooks are one of the first materials families receive. We want to start relationships with families and parents on a positive note and set the tone for student success. We believe that promoting the whole child learning development needs to rely on strong school-community relationships.
So our committee briefly reviewed some of the student handbooks that are currently in print. Just some examples. In the elementary handbook, the way it's ordered alphabetically. And unfortunately, one of the very first paragraphs in the elementary book is about discipline. And we thought that's not the way we would like our families to first look at the handbook for whatever elementary school that they're in. At the high school level, the book has a lot of emphasis on just parents. We know, everybody would like a traditional parent household and for our students, but that's not the case. A lot of our our students have foster parents, aunts, uncles, different caregivers. So we'd like the language to reflect that. As far as creative process for students, anonymous or not, to communicate concerns with equity in our schools, just like the curriculum auditing, there are oftentimes many interactions with teachers, students, staff in the building where there are microaggressions, direct racist behavior happening, and students don't feel comfortable being able to report that. We would like to adopt some kind of system, whether it's electronic or not, where the students would be able to report instances of this and not feel like there would be retaliation if they did. This is what the Bias and Sensitivity Review Committee has for recommendations for now. Thank you. You can move to the next slide.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Madeline Ceballos Wilkinson, and I am a first grade teacher at the Hill School. Tonight, I will be presenting from the Data and Accountability team, along with a student from the Rummy Marsh Academy. Irta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Irta Smahili. I'm an 8th grader at the RMA, and I've been an RPS student for my entire life.
So over the past few months, our Data and Accountability team dove into specific data to Revere Public Schools in 2 categories: discipline and English language development growth. We looked specifically at state-reported discipline data for Revere Public Schools and surveyed administrators to learn more about school-based discipline tracking systems. We also reviewed Access Student Growth Percentile, or SGP, scores to identify trends in English language growth across cohorts of EL students. We analyzed the Access data based on a variety of factors, including race, ethnicity, high needs status, and native language, as well as averaging SGP by schools and grade levels. The graph to your left shows state-reported disciplinary action by type for the 2019-2020 school year. State-reported discipline includes suspensions, expulsions, and emergency removals, among other more serious disciplinary action. You can see that the highest reported disciplinary action for this past school year was out of school suspension. The percentage of all RPS students with out of school suspensions can be seen in red at 1.9%. You can see that the rate for out of school suspensions was much higher for our students with disabilities at 2.4% and for our African American and Black students at 3%, despite only 3.3% of the RPS student body identifying as African American or Black for the 2019-2020 school year.
Thank you for that, Maddie. And as you can see on the graph to the right, we also looked into average SGP scores by IEP status on the 2020 Access Test. It's important to understand that SGP compares growth of EL students of similar English development profiles, specifically among other students who scored similarly the previous year and have a similar amount of time learning English. For SGB scores, 50 is actually considered average growth as well. It's also important to note that SGP is only available for students who have taken Access in the prior school year, meaning that newcomers or students who have moved in from another school that doesn't take Access will not have an SGP score. With this in mind, looking at the graph, there's a clear disparity between EL students on individualized education programs and those that aren't. Knowing that EL students on IEPs had an SGP score of 42, while those that weren't on IEPs got an average score of 58, helped us create recommendations I'll speak more on ahead.
Our first recommendation focuses on equity in discipline. As I mentioned before, state-reported data only includes high-level disciplinary actions, leaving lower-level disciplinary actions like office visits and detentions unreported. Because of this, the Data and Accountability team surveyed RPS administrators at all grade levels to determine if there is enough data available at a district level to identify trends for lower-level disciplinary actions. As you can see in the graph to the left, 60% of administrators reported that their current method of tracking discipline in their school would not provide enough data to consistently track disciplinary action across student demographic groups. Although we saw trends in the state-reported data, we were unable to analyze district-level data for similarities. Therefore, the Data and Accountability team recommends that the school committee implement a system for tracking lower-level disciplinary incidents with fidelity in all schools, so that the following, in conjunction with the data analysis from the recently completed equity audit by Mass Insight, can be accomplished. We'd like to analyze lower-level disciplinary data by student demographic groups to determine whether trends mirror those found in state-reported data. We would also like to investigate root causes and escalation of disciplinary action for certain demographic groups and explore opportunities to increase the use of restorative practices and alternate discipline pathways. Next slide, please.
And for our first recommendation related to English language learning programs in Revere, we advise the school committee to work towards expanding the current EL program at the RMA. As of now, EL students entering middle school are placed at the SBA and GMS because they are the only middle schools with full EL programs to accommodate a large number of students. These restrictions cause inequitable access for ELs to have varying experiences the RMA has to offer, creating a demographic imbalance across our middle schools, highlighted in the graph to the left. Whether EL students want to go to the RMA because it's closer to their homes, they have family or friends going there, or want to participate in electives the school offers, allowing equitable access and caseload balance is pertinent, especially when only 5.2% of the population is represented at the RMA, as opposed to around 15% at both the SBA and GMS. Even from my own experience as an RPS and RMA student, I've had friends of mine from the 5th grade saddened to hear that they couldn't go to the same school as me, simply because they were EL students. Ensuring high-quality EL services, accommodations, and opportunities across all schools is crucial. And for a second EL program recommendation, we like to focus on supporting EL students with IEPs. Specifically, we like to further investigate EL programming for those students and identify strategies that ensure their English language growth. This work would include looking further into Access SGP scores for students with IEPs and different instructional models across the district, along with pursuing professional development opportunities to help aid EL and special education teachers in supporting EL students with disabilities. On top of this, including dedicated times for collaboration and school-wide PLGs between EL teachers and special education teachers would aid in sharing perspectives of how we can further support EL students on IEPs, especially given the 16-point difference in SGP between other EL students. And with that, we hope that you take into consideration the data and accountabilities team, discipline, and ELL related recommendations. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Jessica Medina. I am a sophomore at Revere High School, and I am part of a family engagement and community relations team. I will be presenting this with myself and also Ashley Waterberg. Our rationale is, as outlined in the Revere Public Schools District Improvement Plan 2020 to 2025, RPS is committed to creating opportunities for parent engagement and input in school and district decision making. However, there is a lack of trust and relationships built among families, the community, and the school system. We believe that all of the 6 fundamentals in the family engagement policy, which is linked in the rationale, are critical to engaging families as partners and building community relationships. We are therefore prioritizing our initial efforts on the above 3 fundamentals and objectives. Our first fundamental from the family engagement policy is welcoming all people. The objective would be to promote a safe, inclusive, respectful, and equitable school climate for all, regardless of one's culture, race, ethnicities, language, sexual orientation, disabilities, and beliefs. The second fundamental is communicating effectively. Our objective would be to develop and promote multiple communication paths between schools and families. The 6th fundamental is partnering with the community. The objective would be to work with families to turn the school into a hub of community life. Now I'll be passing it on to Ashley.
Hi everybody, I'm Waterberg. I am a school social worker at the Susan B. Anthony Middle School, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you tonight how we as a committee envision being able to reach those 3 fundamentals and the objectives that we just outlined. So our vision really is to completely reimagine how the family engagement, how it's actually structured. And we are suggesting that Revere creates a Family and Community Engagement Center, or the FCEC, that needs to be an inclusive and welcoming space. In order for that to happen, staff will need to be trained in cultural competency, customer service skills, and professionalism. And it will also be very, very important for the folks who are working in the Family and Community Engagement Center reflect the communities in Revere. So within this Family and Community Engagement Center, we're proposing that the following offices are housed. So a communication office that has a communication director, and that's where the translators and interpreters are all, that's where they're based out of. And that would standardize and centralize our translation services that are so critical in our district. The other office, the second office, would be the Welcoming and Registration Office, which is currently referred to as PIC, or Parent Information Center, that has a director, and we would rename the folks who work there as the Academic Transition Advisors. We're proposing that there be a nurse, a social worker, who would connect families to different resources, including the Special Education Office. Next, the Family Engagement Office would house the Family Liaison Coordinator that we have this year, and all of the amazing family liaisons that we've invested in. And that could also potentially host Parent Academy and workshops for families. And lastly, within the Family and Community Engagement Center, we're proposing a Family and Student Supports Office that would house the Truancy Officer, Homeless Liaison, SNAP Coordinator, and right now what's actually currently at the high school, it would be placed within this engagement center, a job support person who helps students with issuing work permits. And all of this is only possible if we continue the relationships that we already have with our very important community partners, which we've listed in the circle. Just to highlight a few, the Human Rights Commission, MGH Cares, North Suffolk Mental Health and Home for Little Wanderers, Revere Parks and Rec. There are so many partnerships that make this work possible. So we're so excited to really rethink how to engage families. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Zachary Guelba. I am a 7th grade student at the Rumney Marsh Academy, and today I'm here to talk to you about why student agency must be a priority in Revere. Young people have the right to speak up regarding decisions that affect them. Districts that purposefully include student voice are proven to have students who feel confident, students who embrace challenges, students who are connected to their community, students who are invested in democratic values, and students who demonstrate a deeper culture of competency. Also, districts that embrace student voice cultivate a healthier school community. All the words that are highlighted in blue are links to our sources. Next slide, please. Increasing student voice can be made by creating and sharing a TV or social media segments of varying lengths. This could be done by working in cooperation with Revere TV, including students across all grade levels, and engaging young people in conversation about race and equity on a regular basis. Regular curriculum feedback forms can be found in coordination with the Bias and Sensitivity Subcommittee.
Thank you, Zach. And I am Sylvia Chan, the director of the Revere Cares Coalition, community member of the Equity Advisory Board, and I've had the privilege of participating on the student agency work group. Attached to this slide is a video sample or a pilot of what the students would like to produce with some regularity in the future. I would like to point out that to preserve sound quality, you will see that the participating students in this video are now wearing masks. However, the Revere TV staff made sure that the students maintained appropriate physical distancing during the recording at all times. So if you put the presentation back and play the video, please enjoy.
You are now watching Revere TV. I'm the host, Khadija Shagoba. Do you feel that your voice is being heard in the Revere system?
The COVID pandemic was a perfect example because none of the students were included in any of the decisions, and we were more excluded in what was happening in the pandemic and the response to it.
We have someone on a Zoom call. Sylvia.
You know, Revere Cares has always known that youth voices are very important. That's why we've always hosted some kind of youth initiative.
So Zachary, please tell me, how do you feel that Revere students' voices are being heard in the community?
In schools, you have to teach students, and you can't teach students as well if you don't know what they want and what they'd like to learn in classes.
So Hannah, how are you feeling with Revere students' voices being heard?
Being part of the equity team, we're trying to address a lot of things like racism, sexism, Islamophobia, you know, trying to review over books and stuff like that. And I think that's so essential in learning and growing as a community. So this, just being in this community and being in the equity team, is taking a big step overall.
Thank you for sharing your voice. That is one step in the right direction. Thank you also at home viewers for watching.
That's the end of the presentation, and at this moment we are open to any questions that the committee may have. I must say that we have a committee. One of the committees did not present. It's the Committee on Educator Growth and Development. They also worked very hard on that project. I don't know if it was supposed to be presented by Lisa Golden. Goldney. I don't know if she's. Oh, Abel. Abel said that he did present. My apology. So at this time, we're open to any questions you may have.
Anthony, the mayor has recognized you.
Oh, I apologize. I could not hear him. But I just wanted to say, no question, just brief comment. This presentation was fantastic. I mean, the actual, buttoned up nature of the presentation, the data-backed arguments. It seems like you all, from teachers, staff, and students, everybody involved, has really taken this initiative and run with it. So please feel free to reach out to any of us here if we can be helpful in any particular ways as we seek to review these recommendations and hopefully drive as many forward as we can. But amazing job, everyone.
Yes, it is my hope within 2 weeks to have an equity inclusion subcommittee meeting. So I will be asking Dr. Garcia for maybe some help in our first meeting, basically setting up some type of equity vision statement, and moving on to how our students and parents can help us in the policy area. So I'm sure a lot of this group will have valuable information for us, and I look forward to working together. So thank you very much, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you.
Ms. Ty.
Carol, you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now? Thank you. I am so pleased that so many people from all aspects of our community, so many teachers, so many students, so many community people, many of whom have been serving this community for a long, long time. And it's really a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I commend all of you for doing it. Maybe I should not take any personal pride in it, but I've been very proud of the students and of the education they must have been getting, that they could stand up there and speak so well. And the teachers, I'm particularly taken by the fact that you all call each other by their first names. I think that's a wonderful place to begin. And I look forward to you making concrete, giving us a concrete pattern, which you wish that we would follow so that we can achieve. I know it won't be easy and I know it won't be quick, but I'm looking for the next step and where we will go from here. I'm sure under the leadership of Dr. Kelly, Dr. Garcia, and all of the teachers, all of the kids who put in all their own time and worked at it, I'm sure we'll be a success. Thank you so much. I found it enlightening.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Dr. Kelly, can you continue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure if somebody on the Zoom can give me a thumbs up if you can hear me right now. Okay, thank you, Carol. The next item on the superintendent's report is a presentation by the Rumney Marsh Academy. And actually, sorry, before we go on, I want to thank everybody that was on the Equity Advisory Board for all of the hard work they did over this school year. And I assure you that the next step will be that we'll talk to Mrs. Rizzo and the other members of the Equity Subcommittee on the school committee and talk about how exactly we go forward with implementing as many of the recommendations as this board has made as we possibly can. So your work is recognized and honored, and our next piece will be figuring out exactly how to implement those. So thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Garcia, for pulling the team together and leading them the way that you have. Our next presentation, as I started to say, will be from the Rumney Marsh Academy. And Principal Bob is here with us. I know she's got a couple of school community members who are going to join her as well in their presentation. And I would ask Principal Bob if she's here.
I'm here.
Thank you, Heather. Do you want to give an intro, and I will pull up your presentation?
Sure, absolutely. So this year at the Rumney Marsh Academy, our school vision has been trifold in that we have a focus on 3 initiatives, one being the social and emotional well-being and growth of our students. The second one being equity, which is a charge that has been led by one of our assistant principals, Ms. Daly Ortega. And what we're going to talk about tonight is the third aspect, which is engaging in deeper learning by infusing student voice and choice in their learning. So the deeper learning initiative is in partnership with the Kaleidoscope team and grant through DESE. And it's been in great part led by our other assistant principal, who is going to join us and speak to this in a minute, Mr. Connor O'Keefe, to whom I'm extremely grateful for his commitment to this work. As a newly installed principal last July, having this placed in my lap, Mr. O'Keefe was extremely strong in his leadership and stepped up and really took charge of this group and showed great organization and, again, leadership, and has led the team to a point where they are actually creating model units for DESE. And so with that, I'm really proud to turn it over to Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mrs. Bob. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background information before we jump into the slideshow presentation. Deeper learning started here at RMA in the middle of last school year, prior to the shutdown in March. This was after RMA was awarded a grant through the Kaleidoscope Collective, through the DESE. Over the summer, the administration team with Mrs. Bob, we discussed at length whether or not moving forward with fulfilling what was put into the action plan of the grant was even a good idea in this school year, with all of the other changes that were going to be happening or that were happening at that time. And ultimately, we decided that this work was really a continuation of the work that we had started a long time ago, and fit really well, seamlessly into our school vision with its focus on equity and equitable teaching practices. And of course, the team of teachers that we worked with agreed with that, and we're really grateful for that. So the first order of business, so to speak, after we decided to move forward, was to find a teacher, educator, to take up the role of lead teacher. Mr. Canellis, Mr. Nick Canellis, who's part of this presentation, he volunteered to take on that role in only his second year as a teacher at RMA, and we could not be more pleased with the work he's done. And before I turn it over to him to take us through the presentation, I also want to acknowledge the educators on our Deeper Learning team. You're going to see their names in this presentation. They've led by example and then brought what they have learned through that process to their colleagues to make this work. And of course, the whole reason we do this work is to reach and teach our students, and they've enthusiastically engaged with the work provided through the tasks that the teachers have presented, and we're very proud of what they have produced. So now I'll turn it over to 7th grade social studies teacher, Mr. Nick Canellis, and he's brought along one of his students, 7th grader Isaiah Llanos, if you have questions for him at the end of the presentation.
Hi, and thank you, Connor, for everything that you've said. One thing I do want to start with is, so I realized at the beginning of the slideshow, I put my byline on there, kind of, but I just because being the presenter, I thought that made sense. But really, these slides, I want to make sure it's known. It's definitely like a combination of a lot of work from a lot of people who helped, put a lot of this together. So I just want to make sure everybody gets the acknowledgement that they deserve, and you'll see their names later in the presentation. So Connor talked a lot about the grant through the Kaleidoscope, and so I just want to give a quick background on what the Kaleidoscope is. It is a pilot program created to nurture deeper learning in Massachusetts public schools, including the RMA. The cohort first began in January 2020, and is supposed to continue until this June. We actually have our next convening next week. This professional learning experience has given schools like us the chance to kind of rethink and redesign our classroom instruction around the concept of deeper learning. So if we go to the next slide, that would be great. So deeper learning itself, the way we best word it is it emerges at the intersection of the three elements shown in this graphic, which is building content knowledge, producing authentic work, which is, in our eyes, identifying a real-world issue and creating something relevant that could have a meaningful impact on community, and developing 21st century skills, many of it including like elements of critical thinking and taking on the roles of professionals in the field in which they're studying. And the intended outcomes are expected to be mastery, identity, and creativity. And hopefully these are all shown through student experiences. Next slide. So this is kind of the slide where I just want to give some recognition to everybody who was part of this. So it's not just myself. Sam Walters, Kim Odenthal, Abby Smith, Laura Los Mosos, and Ashley Chinelli all played incredible roles in making this happen. Next slide. Thank you. Deeper learning tasks. Really, this was the foundation of our work, was giving students tasks to help them really get embedded in this work. The goal was to have each student experience at least one deeper learning task in every one of their classes by the end of the school year. And as we stand right now, we have, or we're about to meet that goal, where even the primary members of the team worked with different elective courses to help them craft their own deeper learning work as well. So it wasn't just in the core subjects. Thank you. So a deeper learning task. It begins with a meaningful, relevant problem and progresses to develop content knowledge and 21st century skills that equip students to solve the problem. The arc concludes with students applying their knowledge, possibly to produce something meaningful to their community. So the Kaleidoscope really asks us to focus on 5 foundational indicators in these deeper learning tasks, as I've outlined in this chart. First and foremost, the learning needs to be grounded by an overarching essential question or theme, connecting grade-appropriate standards and skills. But it should also be open-ended, intriguing, and kind of help students unpack big ideas and transfer that knowledge from the content to these real-world issues. And that kind of dives into the idea of a genuine problem. We want students to look at this real-world problem and really bring their attention to what's going on, as well as help them understand the content. Disciplinary thinking, as I mentioned earlier, we want students to practice the skills and thinking necessary to the discipline or the profession that we're looking in. A purposeful product. We want student products to have a clear purpose and audience. We don't want this to just be like a poster that's just going to get thrown out. We want this to be something that can really have an impact on the community. And then make sure students are working with resources that question societal power dynamics and provide context, exposure, and examples of diverse voices, perspectives, and experiences where it applies. You can go next, thank you so much. So deeper learning is also largely connected to equity. If you go through a typical task adjustment protocol, the first thing that you'll find is an equity pause, which I'm going to highlight a little more as we continue. This step allows teachers to look at the task through an equitable lens and ensure the task is not rooted in oppression. Thank you. So to the right, it's probably a little harder to see, so I can read some of it to you just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. But these questions were designed to ensure all tasks are equitable above all else, while also meeting the outcomes of mastery, identity, and creativity. It's also started to become a regular part of our PLGs within the school. Thank you for zooming in on that, by the way. So of course, first of all, making sure it's grade level work, making sure we're looking at multiple perspectives. You know, we don't want to just look at the perspective of one group of people. We're also making sure the resources we're using aren't just like having one person from a certain group represent the entire community's perspective on an issue. That's just kind of the gist of what we're going for here. This is perfect. Thank you so much. Next slide. So now brought this slide up because I thought it would be cool to show you all some samples of some of the tasks that have been done this year. You can see there's a very wide array here between ELA, social studies, science, math, and including one of our elective courses, Unheard Voices in Literature and Media. And so I just thought it would be great to highlight some of these. For instance, Sam Walters, who's the 8th grade math teacher, part of the team, used the Pythagorean theorem to calculate distances from RMA to various locations in Revere to determine who is guaranteed bus transportation within a 2-mile radius. And students followed up by writing a sample letter about transportation using evidence from both their math and an article that they read. I think another great one, which I really enjoyed working collaboratively with, was the one to the far right on the role of women in positions of power, which was done by our 6th grade social studies teachers, Hannah Kimker and Zach McDaniel. And they looked at the role of women pharaohs and their contributions to Egyptian history. And they also explored the role of women in all levels of government. Students even had the opportunity to speak to State Representative Jessica Giannino about her experiences as a woman in politics, and students reflected on her responses, so that was a great thing to have. And then we also had students creating their own children's story in Abby Lardy's class, human body systems with Laura Losmozos and Kim Odenthal at the 6th grade science level, as well as a great task by Abby Smith for 8th grade ELA, tying back to the book Warriors Don't Cry, where students explored different essential questions and examined different ways to stand up and speak out for social justice. So in this case, kind of playing the role of an activist. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So one of our goals this year as a team was to come up with like a common task reflection that students could respond to. And the most recent deeper learning task that I just highlighted, the one by Abby Smith, she was actually the one who really played the biggest role in creating this student response or student reflection sheet. And these are just some of the responses that she got from students, and I thought these were pretty amazing. I'll read those out loud. So I learned how these people found ways to ensure their voice was heard in a powerful way. I learned that some people argued instead of educating people, and may come out wrong to others, and that this past year we have really spoken out with our voices and used the power we have to make changes. I liked how there were tons of options to choose from to do this project. I'm very proud of myself for using the creative side of my brain, and I'm proud of how well I designed it. So I just thought these are just, and I can speak for myself and say, and we're going to get more into that, that these have definitely translated, not just to this task, but to a lot of the tasks that we've done this year. All right, next slide. So I just mentioned we're going to talk a little bit about student responses, and before we do that, I want to get into a task that I did this year. It was really the first deeper learning task that we took through the Kaleidoscope's entire deeper learning protocol, between just like introducing the task, protocoling it with team members, submitting it to the Kaleidoscope, working with our liaison at the Kaleidoscope, who really worked a lot with me on adjusting it and helping it meet their expectations, as well as going through a reflection together. So the objective of this project, or this task I should say, was, so by the end of the unit, students would be able to identify the various achievements of the Harappan people, which is from the ancient Indus River Valley civilization, understand the value of people of color in innovation and technology, and create a persuasive open letter for increasing representation of people of color in innovation. So really the two essential questions we were trying to answer as we went was, how important is it to learn from the technological advancements and innovations of the past in order to spark more diversity at America's most innovative companies? And in what ways have the achievements of people of color improved society for the better? The next slide, please. So, students explored and analyzed the achievements of the Indus River Valley civilization in the various ways in which it has contributed to our society today. Students then followed up by looking at modern innovation in technology and unpacked the lack of diversity in this industry. Next slide. So this was an open letter. The primary task was to create an open letter. So students wrote an open letter to the tech company of their choice after we took some time diving into the different data and statistics and some of the actions that the companies have tried taking in the time, and even just in the last few years, really. And they were asking these companies to address the lack of diversity and provide ideas for how they can improve. Students were asked to refer back to the Indus River Valley as evidence that people from all over, particularly those of color, could bring just as much value to the company as civilizations have been doing for centuries. And after finishing, students were given the opportunity to have their letters published online. And this here was just a screenshot I took of one of the published letters, just to give you an idea of really the amount of detail and the amount of work a lot of students put into it. If people were interested in reading it, I did include a hyperlink where it says here. All right, so last but not least, I put together a short video just having a few students who felt comfortable share their reactions to this task and some of their thoughts and what they liked about it, what they were proud of, and things that they learned. So that would be the last piece, was if we could see that video.
I'm
And
gonna
that would be it.
share my screen so we can do that.
Thank you so much.
That a large percentage of people of color weren't hired for jobs in tech companies, and they weren't really given that opportunity to, with other people that were more fortunate, that came from like better areas, either based on their race or social structure.
Doing
a lot of the research for that assignment really taught me more about diversity in general and how big companies like Apple deal with it.
I kind of liked how I got to add in the Indus River Valley stabilization. I feel like not a lot of people know about it, and like putting it into something like this topic, I feel like it really needs to be like well known.
I was able to like learn something from the assignment you gave us, and how it taught me something about how people look at you a different way just because of your skin color and stuff like that.
I got to express the way I felt about this topic.
The effort that I put in to kind of make my point to show like that there needs to be a change.
It's kind of cheesy, but how well written I did it, because I got a lot of compliments from like some of my family members who read it and some of my peers who read it. And reading it back, I think I wrote it really well, so I'm really proud of that.
Thank you for showing that. I appreciate it.
So that's the end of our presentation. I believe we can take questions now. And just to remind committee members, we did invite Isaiah, who's one of the students represented in the last video clip there, if you want to direct any questions to an RMA student as well.
Do any members have any questions or comments? Seeing none in person, are there any members online?
Well, I'd like to ask, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Isaiah what he has planned for his future.
So when I grow up, I want to be an ecologist, somebody who studies like different ecosystems and how they work, stuff like that.
Excellent. And where will you go to college?
Hopefully I can get into Ivy League, like Harvard, Yale, and one of those colleges.
Why not? Congratulations, I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tsai. Ms. Gravellisi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say, you know, it was very impressive. I was very impressed with the deeper learning tasks that the teachers created, but I was even more impressed with their students' reflections. They were very, very impressive. And I wanted to ask, you had mentioned, well, there's a link for this one particular letter that we could read, but you also mentioned that some were published online. Where would we be able to find those if we wanted to read those?
Yeah, so I can respond to that. So I put together like I was trying to figure out what the best way to do that. So I put together just a teacher, like myself, teacher Google site, and housed the students who were open to having those published there. So I can definitely pull up a link. It's a Google site link, so I can either pull it up here and I can read out the link if you want to just give me just a second. Should have been more prepared to do that, actually.
Nick, if I could suggest, one of the things that we could do is put a link on the Rummy Marsh Academy website.
Sure.
We do have a page there for student work, and we could put a link there to the essays. We would just want to make them anonymous for any students.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would work too, absolutely.
Thank you. That would be great. Very
Thank you.
impressive.
Thank you, Ms. Gravellisi. Any other members? Seeing none. Thank you, Team RMA. Tremendous presentation, and best of luck, Isaiah, in your future. Dr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just say to the entire Rumney team, including Principal Bob, who's had a lot on her plate in her first year coming here. But I think Nick shows us an example of the phenomenal teachers that we have working on these projects around deeper learning and around competency-based learning. And as we move more in that direction with competency-based grading and engaging kids in more of these deeper learning experiences, I think we really do a better job of preparing them for the future, whether they decide to go on to college or career or military or whatever they choose to do, by really giving them a voice in the work that they're doing. They can identify areas that they really relate to and that relate to them, and that alone will make school a little bit more exciting and engaging for them. So we look forward as a district to doing more of this work from kindergarten through 12th grade, and we'll look to the Rummy Marsh Academy and the other schools who have been leaders in this work. The Lincoln is another one at the elementary level, but all of our schools who have done the MCIEA work over the years, and really look to them as the leaders to help the rest of us grow in this area. So thank you very much. The next item on the superintendent's report is an update on college admissions in our senior class and where everybody's off to and what they're doing. And I know that our Director of Guidance and Testing, Mrs. Finn, is here with us tonight to give us a little bit of an update. And I will invite Diana to say hello while I pull up your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you for inviting me to present here tonight. I'm really happy to be here to share some of our class of 2021 successes with you. I'm exceptionally proud of the work students have done this year and the challenges they've overcome with their teachers and counselors in the face of a global pandemic, something that I don't think any of us had ever foreseen. So over this year, just some context, over this senior classes year, we have sent out and they have submitted over 2,400 college applications. In addition, 950 teacher and counselor recommendations were submitted. These are truly incredible numbers when you consider the circumstances that that everyone has been under. And so while some students are still making final determinations, our supports are still in place for any student who needs help based on their individual needs. So for the next slide, Dr. Kelly. So first and foremost, our guidance counselors partner primarily with our students to meet their academic, social, and emotional needs, and act as their primary school-based resource for seniors in particular. In addition, we have 2 ELO, External Learning Opportunities, college and career counselors, who in addition to our dual enrollment and internship program, facilitate college and career workshops for groups of students and run financial aid sessions for students. So, and more specifically, during this year of Zoom meetings, there are planning several meetings per week for seniors, things such as college rep visits, career panels, trade programs, financial aid, and gap year programs for students to learn about. And the first partnership listed there, just our Google Classroom called RHS Opportunities, is our one-stop shop for all of those opportunities that those counselors have presented to students. And then in addition, there are several partners that we work closely with, one being Mass General, their youth programs and youth scholars in particular. Let's Get Ready, that while they prepare students for the SATs, they also provide college preparation. We run a college and career boot camp of sorts, a 1-week credit-bearing elective course actually for students to take their first steps in applying to college. The Educational Opportunity Center, which is through North Shore Community College, that works tirelessly with students to fill out the details of the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And then lastly, Mass Hire, which weekly sends over a career counselor to work with any student, including seniors, on workforce readiness skills, including resume writing and interview skills. And in a normal year, non-COVID year, all of these presentations happen in person, and of course they were all on Zoom. These resources, coupled with our guidance counselor and ELO collaboration, contribute to the colleges on the next slide. So certainly these are some of our points of pride for the class of 2021. And while you can see some of the most esteemed colleges and universities on this list in the country, including Harvard, Middlebury, Tufts, NYU, Howard, Holy Cross, and Amherst College, we certainly pride ourselves on helping students to apply to schools that meet their specific needs, their academic, social, geographic, and of course their financial needs. And for students who are not attending college, for those that are going off to work, the military, into trades, or into career programs, we've worked really hard this year to engage with community partners, with unions, with gap year programs, and career certifications that partner with Bunker Hill and with North Shore to address the needs of students whose next steps may not be 2- and 4-year schools. And so many of these additional programs are ongoing. And certainly while we're so proud of the schools that are on the presentation in front of us, we are so proud of every senior, whether they're going to a 2 or 4, an Ivy, a state university, a UMass, work, military, trade, and even those students who maybe just need some more time to figure it out and figure out what their next steps are. So the next slide, Dr. Kelly, is our ongoing work. And so we know that based on FAFSA completion and college enrollment last year and this year, that we were applying for and received a FAFSA completion grant. So we have our counselors working with students who have yet to complete the FAFSA. So they're working with some of our partners on the previous slide, as well as our community colleges to find the right fit for students who, due to some circumstances outside of their control this year, haven't completed the FAFSA just yet. In addition, we're running our traditional college and career boot camp for next year's seniors. And we're running and developing a summer college session, not just for the class of 2021 like the slide says, but also for the class of 2020 who had some, obviously unforeseen circumstances through COVID and may need additional support. So those sessions this summer will, when those students are ready to come in and interact with counselors, we'll be able to meet their needs as well. And just in closing, as always, the commitment and hard work and perseverance of our students, teachers, and counselors is really just on full display this year. And if there are any questions, I thank you for your time tonight.
Any members have any questions? Seeing none in person. Anyone online? Ms. Ty? Go ahead, Ms. Ty.
Did you call on me? It was difficult to hear you.
I did, Ms. Ty, go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, I am amazed at the colleges. We have always had, one kid who goes to Harvard, one kid who goes to Princeton, and one kid who goes to, NYU. But this year, when you look at the list, and you think of how difficult it was for both the teachers to help them do it, and I remember the days when I was writing recommendations at Revere High School, and when I hear the number of recommendations that were written, I know how difficult that must have been for the teachers, trying to create, a new way of teaching in a pandemic, and trying to make sure that they serve the kids by writing the best letter that they can for them. And we saw some of it. I happen to be lucky enough to be on the city scholarship committee, and it was, as Sister knows, it was so difficult because there were so many wonderful people who were in need of money and who were going to go out in the world and shine, and that would always look back on us. So I'm very proud of the kids who have achieved so much, and particularly of the teachers, the guidance counselors, everybody in our schools, from the superintendent all the way down, who supports all these kids in whatever they need. It's a really wonderful spirit in the community of Revere. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Ms. Cicinella.
Ms. Finn. Ms. Finn. Any idea of the amount of scholarships, either partially or full scholarships that the students have received?
Sure, so our scholarship committee and those scholarships that are local scholarships, whether they're decided on by our scholarship committee or by outside sponsors, are still, they're still up in the air. By the end of next week, we'll have some more concrete numbers there, and we'll be proud to present that presentation in early June. I believe it's before graduation we'll be sharing it. So the financial aid awards that we've seen so far this year have been exceptional, but there are times that students don't share those because they're personal in nature. So those that we've seen and the questions that we've had, we've certainly been proud of. And for those students who didn't receive the financial award that maybe they were hoping for, we've helped those students write appeal letters to the colleges and worked with them to make those difficult financial decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mrs. Cicinella. Any other members? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Finn, for your tremendous work and your entire team. It is a testament to it, seeing the great highlights of college acceptance and all that you do for us students. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will just echo the mayor's thanks. I know that everybody in the school department has been doing incredible work, but it's particularly challenging to chase kids down for paperwork that they need to get into college or complete their FAFSA and those other pieces. And our guidance department at the high school has done a great job with that, so thank you to everybody there. The next item on the superintendent's report is actually one of the least palatable topics that we are forced to discuss each year, and that is the middle school lottery. And Dr. Mokaba has done the hard work of working with our principals to get the applications back from all families and make sure that we have a selection sheet indicating the child's first, second, and third choice for every fifth grader across the district. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Mokaba. And Dr. Mokaba, I will bring up your presentation now if you want to just get started bringing us through the ideas there.
Sure. So thank you. The middle school lottery is going to take place on Thursday, May 27th at 5 p.m. We will do it live in the school committee room. We're going to do it on Zoom, and it'll be shown on YouTube so that we won't have any attendees in the room with us. This year, once again, there are 8 lotteries, and they'll be done in the order of the largest first. So Wayland will go first, then Garfield, Hill, Paul Revere, Lincoln, and Beachmont. So for the Wayland, there will be a lottery for SBA only. So typically, historically, Wayland has 2 lotteries, one for RMA and one for SBA. This year, there is only going to be a lottery for SBA, but as you can see, a significant number of students did select SBA. So I can go over just the way that these sheets look and the information provided. One thing I will say is that this is not a final draft. We still have to go through and verify siblings. We still have to go through and double and triple check our lists against the original sheets. So on the night of the lottery, I will have a final count for all of this. So Wayland, there are 119 fifth grade students, 9 of which are in special programs. So 110 students will be in the lottery. There are 36.67 seats per school, so the way that works out, Garfield gets 36 seats, Rumney 37, and Susan B. Anthony 37. As you can see, 73 students selected Susan B. Anthony, 25 selected Rumney, and 12 selected Garfield Middle School. So the lottery for SBA, there will be 65 names on 63 cards. So 36 students will not get their first choice. Of those students, there are 12 spots available to the Rumney, and 24, the remaining 24 would attend Garfield Middle School. The next lottery is the Garfield Elementary School lottery to Garfield Middle School. So here, Garfield Elementary has 97 fifth graders, 2 of whom are in special programs. So we have 95 students entered into the lottery. There are 31.67 seats. So 32 seats at Garfield Middle are available, 32 at Rumney, and 31 at Susan B. Anthony. There were 57 requests for Garfield Middle School, so there will be a lottery for that. 26 students requested Rumney, and 12 requested Susan B. Anthony. So for the lottery to Garfield Middle School, there will be 54 names on 53 cards. We do have a set of twins there, and there are 25 students will not get their first choice, 6 of whom there are 6 spots available at Rumney for that group, and 19 available to Susan B. Anthony.
Dr. Mocaba, just before we move on, can you talk for a minute about what will happen with second choices as we proceed through the lottery?
Yep, absolutely. So when all of the spots are filled at Garfield Middle School, so the first seat that's drawn that will not get their first choice, we will use their second choice, which if it's RMA, they will get one of the 6 slots at Rumney, or if it's SBA, they will get one of the 19. And we continue in that order, so this way that the students are drawn in order, they will get their second choice if it is still available. If it is not, they will be placed at the other school.
Thank you.
This year for the Hill, there'll be a lottery for both Rumney and Susan B. Anthony. There are 122 students, 10 of whom are in special programs, so there'll be 112 students entered into the lottery. That leaves us with 37 seats at Garfield Middle, 38 seats at Rumney, and 37 seats at Susan B. Anthony. There were 23 requests for Garfield Middle, 45 requests for Rumney, and 44 requests for Susan B. Anthony. So you will see that there will be 41 names on 41 cards. 7 students will not get their first choice. They will attend Garfield Middle School. Susan B. Anthony, similar numbers. There are 41 names on 41 cards. Here as well, 7 students will attend Garfield Middle. For the Paul Revere this year, there's a lottery only to Rumney Marsh Academy. So there are 67 students in grade 5, 4 of whom are in special programs. So 63 students will be participating in the lottery. There are 21 seats per school, so you can see each school received 21 seats. There were 6 requests for Garfield Middle, 37 requests for Rumney, and 20 requests for Susan B. Anthony. So for the Rumney Marsh, there are 32 names on 32 cards. 16 students will not get their first choice, 15 of whom will be placed at Garfield, and 1 will be placed at Susan B. Anthony. This year to the Lincoln, there is a lottery to both Rumney Marsh and Susan B. Anthony. There are 85 students
fifth grade students at Lincoln, 10 of whom are in special programs. So there'll be a lottery for 75 students, 25 seats per school. As you can see, there were 13 requests for Garfield Middle, 28 requests for Rumney, and 34 requests for Susan B. Anthony. So for the Rumney Marsh Academy, we'll have 26 names on 26 cards. 3 students won't get their first choice. They will attend Garfield Middle. For the Susan B. Anthony, there are 31 names on 31 cards. 9 students will not get their first choice. They will also attend Garfield Middle. And finally, for the Beachmont, we have a lottery to Garfield Middle School. There are 52 students there. There are 17.33 seats per school. Garfield has 18 seats, Rumney 17, Susan B. Anthony 17. As you can see, there were 25 requests for Garfield Middle, 11 requests for Rumney, and 16 requests for Susan B. Anthony. There'll be 23 names on 23 cards, so 7 students will not get their first choice, and we will fill there's 1 available spot at Susan B. Anthony and 6 available spots at Rumney Marsh Academy.
And just one other point that I'll make for the folks at home who are listening. If you look at each of the schools that Dr. Mokaba just reviewed, and I'll use the Beachmont for example since that's the one that's up here. As she indicated, the only school where there is a lottery for Beachmont students is to the Garfield Middle. So families who selected the Rumney Marsh Academy or the Susan B. Anthony as their first choice will receive those placements. It's only when a form was submitted indicating that the first choice was Garfield for students from Beachmont that they'll be involved in the lottery. And I'll look back at Lincoln School, for example, just to give another example. As Dr. Mokaba indicated, there'll be lotteries for Lincoln students at both who selected Rumney Marsh as their first choice and for kids who selected Susan B. Anthony as their first choice. If you're one of the kids, or if you're the parent of one of the children, or a caregiver of one of the children who selected Garfield Middle School as your first choice, you will get that placement. There is no lottery. It's only a lottery if you selected Rumney Marsh or Susan B. Anthony as your first choice. So thank you very much, Dr. Mokaba.
Any members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Francie.
Thank you. Dr. Kelly, have we already hired the accountant that's going to be pulling the tabs?
I'm going to defer to Dr. Mokaba on that. I believe she has reached out already.
We did, yep. So it is the, I believe it's the accounting firm that we used, not last year during COVID, but the year prior to that.
Did we have any problems with them a couple years ago?
No. They're the ones that we hired to replace the ones we had a problem with, but then they wouldn't come last year because of COVID, so we hired somebody else.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinella.
Dr. Makoba, I'm noticing we just referred to Beachmont. They have request 25 for Garfield and only 18 seats. But yet the Wayland, Revere, and the Hill, very few have opt for seats at the Garfield. Does that mean that the 25 from Beachmont can use those seats for their first choice?
No, unfortunately, and
Why not?
I can speak to this, Mr. Sinella. So we used to, years ago, when the lottery came this way, and we often had more requests for Garfield Middle from students who went to Garfield Elementary, and sometimes from Beachmont Elementary as well. We would grant those seats to the students and the families requesting them. And what we would do is allocate the extra, so to speak, seats at the Susan B. Anthony and the Rumney to students at the other schools where those schools were oversubscribed. And one year, a group of parents came before the school committee and complained and said that that was unfair and inequitable. And at that time, the committee voted to say that we could no longer have that practice, that if a lottery was demanded, a lottery should be had, and we shouldn't be trading seats. I want to say that was 6 or 7 years ago that happened. It might even be longer. I don't know if anybody recalls. Yeah, longer.
And the complaint, what was the complaint from the parents? Yeah, what wasn't there? I mean, very few want to go to the Garfield. Here you have 25, and it's closer to them than to schlep them from Beachmont to Romney Marsh or up to Susan B. Anthony. That makes no sense at all. I mean, fair, unfair. I mean, the seats, they're asking to go. No one else wants to go. So you're going to force 25 who want to go someplace else, and other schools who don't want to go are going to have to go to the Garfield. No sense. I mean, you're trying to accommodate first choices. That's a given.
Any other members?
The next item on the superintendent's report is actually just a notification to the committee that we were awarded another grant from the state, and this grant is just under $10,000. It's $9,524, and that's to expand our summer food services program. And I want to thank all the folks in our food services department who took the lead in applying for this grant and actually procured it. And I know that that included Pauline Lyons, who worked with Cheryl Cole and Kitty and a couple of other people from their team to submit that application and receive that grant. So I just wanted to give notice to the committee of that gift and award, so that that's there. And it's not on the agenda, but I actually have one additional item for the school committee. I've asked Dr. Gallucci to give it a bit of an update on summer programs, on what's happening with COVID, and with, because there have been some new developments, as I'm sure people have heard in the last couple of days. The governor has made a couple of announcements, as has the Department of Education and the MIAA. So Dr. Gallucci is going to review those, and he's also going to just touch on our end-of-year activities at all of the schools. And I know Dr. Gallucci is going to share his own presentation, so I will pass it over to you, Dr. Gallucci.
Hey everyone. So I'm going to start us off with the end of the year events across the district for each grade band as well as individual schools. And I will begin with the elementary moving on ceremonies. So the elementary principals work together to ensure a schedule where they will be having 2 moving on ceremonies over the course of 3 days. The Hill and the Paul Revere will be hosting their moving on ceremony on June 16th. The Beachmont and the AC Whalen on June 17th. And the Lincoln and Garfield on June 18th at the times shown on the slide here. Those moving on ceremonies will be recorded. They are going to have students and staff in person, and that will be the schedule for our elementary schools in terms of moving on ceremonies. The middle school moving on ceremonies are going to take place on June 17th. The principals are then going to post a video of the ceremonies the week of June 21st. They're going to honor both in-person requests as well as those students who have chose to stay remote. They have invited those remote students to attend in person if they so choose. However, they will incorporate them into the presentation to be sure that all students are represented at these moving on ceremonies. The next slide captures our end of the year high school events for Revere High School and Seacoast High School. On June 1st, we will have graduation rehearsal for our kids. They are planning a special event for the class of 21, a Revere Beach Night on June 2nd, similar to in years past when the beach has hosted a movie night for the community. It's going to be in the spirit of that. Our National Honor Society 2021 recognition will be posted on June 3rd. Scholarship awards will be posted on June 7th. Our actual graduation for Revere High School seniors, the class of 2021, will take place on June 8th. Underclassmen awards will take place June 15th. Athletic awards will take place June 23rd, and again, those will both be posted for viewing. And National Honor Society induction for this year's juniors will take place in the fall of 2021 to kind of kick off their senior year of high school. All right, I know there's been a lot of questions about summer programming. Danielle and I worked with the principals recently to get their initial plans. I would say that these dates and times are pretty close to 100%. I hesitate to call anything 100%, but certainly they give you a good idea and ballpark of what the schools are planning. The AC Whalen will run from July 6th to August 12th, and their program is going to run from 8:15 to 2:15. The Beachmont School is going to also run from July 6th to August 12th. Their time span is 8:30 to 12:30. The Garfield Elementary is going to run from June 28th to August 5th from 8:30 to 12:30. I should also note that the Garfield Elementary, as it has in years past, is going to serve as our sole location for our special education extended school year, and students who are eligible for that. Typically, the teams make the determination for those students that are at significant risk of substantial regression, and offer them the opportunity for that extended school year. And that will take place from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Lincoln School will be July 6th to August 12th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Paul Revere is June 28th to July 29th, 8:30 to 12:30. And the Hill School will be July 6th to August 12th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you'll see that some of the expanded learning time schools were funded to have expanded learning time hours. Although we didn't have it during the school year, our plan is to have it during our summer programming.
Dr.
Same
Galucci.
here with the middle schools. The Garfield Middle School will have a longer day than the Rumney and the Susan B. Anthony. They're going to run from July 6th to August 12th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And both the Rumney Marsh Academy and the Susan B. Anthony Middle School are going to go from June 28th to July 30th from 8 a.m. to noon.
Dr. Galucci?
Yes.
Sorry, if I could just jump in for 1 second. I just want to highlight that these summer programs will be Monday through Thursday for our regular schools and closed on Friday. And one other thing I want to point out is that the Lincoln summer program is actually going to be housed at the Hill School this summer. I don't think I even got a chance to tell you that because things evolve minute by minute around here. But Mr. Mayor, do you want to mention why the Lincoln School will be moved to the Hill? Do you know? Because our air conditioning project is going to be completed this summer. Thank you to the mayor's office and the city council for funding that.
Awesome news. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. All right, our high school programming. Revere High School is going to offer their summer bridge program from July 6th to August 12th from 8 to 12. They are looking at potentially expanding the end time to 2 p.m. They're still working on that. Our RHS English Learner Academy is going to run from July 6th to August 5th from 8 to 12. And Revere High School is also going to have a credit recovery program for the same date range from 8 to 12. Seacoast High School is going to host both their Seacoast Seminar and their Seacoast Credit Recovery Program from June 22nd to July 15th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that is a list of our end of the year events and our summer programming. I'm going to pause here to see if anybody has any questions on this piece before I get into the new guidelines.
Mr. Sinala, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Gallucci, we're running programs. What specifically are the programs going to be? I mean, is it math? Is it science? Is everyone eligible to attend? I mean, you're throwing out dates, you're throwing out time, but I think we have to be a little more specific, unless I'm missing something. Is it enrichment? Is it makeup? Could you be a little more specific, please?
Sure, and you're absolutely right. I should have led with this. So we will absolutely have an academic component where we will do core subjects, some of our electives, but certainly services such as English learner services and pull-out remediation within the program. In a lot of senses, the principals are designing the program like a typical school program. The one piece that I would say that would be probably just as robust as this school year is our commitment to social emotional learning and ensuring that the students are engaging in their own social and emotional well-being. It's certainly become a greater part of our school programming this year, and I would say that would follow suit during the summer programs. All students are going to be invited to attend. As I said, students that have intensive needs or specific needs are going to be encouraged to attend specific programs like the Special Education Extended Year Program, but certainly other students are going to be welcome to attend their current school's program to ensure that they feel a part of that community, are engaging in the summer, particularly if families feel as though that they need that summer extension.
And sorry, if I could just add to what Dr. Gallucci just said, all of our schools, because we have the ESSER funding to help with our summer programs, which we don't typically have, all of our schools are focused on doing more of that deeper learning work that the Rumney Marsh Academy presented earlier tonight. And each of them has partnered with a community organization. I know a couple of them have had partnered with Lego Education. They're doing robotics programs, and 2 of the schools have partnered with Project Adventure to do outside exploration pieces. So we're trying to make sure that the day is enjoyable for students and doesn't have them confined to indoors. We want to be outside as much as we can. And so every program is going to have an outdoor component to it. And if there's not a community partner, in a couple of cases, they've worked with their own staff who have expertise in different areas like yoga and mindfulness and wellness. And that might be what they do in the afternoon of one of their 4 days. And, you know, really try to make it not feel like not that we ever do, but we don't want summer school to feel like a punitive thing. We want it to feel like we're taking kids from where they are and helping them get further down the path of the road that they belong on.
Mr. Sinella.
If I may continue through you, Dr. The superintendent. Will buses be provided, regular scheduling for middle school, high school? The half-day program, will they have breakfast and lunch, or the full day? Apparently they will.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like a regular, okay.
And the half-day program will have breakfast and lunch as well. We'll be serving both meals at all programs. Transportation will be provided for special needs students who have that on their IEP. Outside of that, that's actually a great question. That's probably something that we should look at, particularly for the middle school students who have to travel across the city and the high school students who do too. I'm not sure. I don't know if Dr. Gallucci has looked into that piece of it yet, but that's certainly a piece that we will look into if not.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are definitely looking into transportation. I think they're still gathering lists of students to, and once those are finalized, we will get that to our director of transportation and arrange that.
And I think that is all from the superintendent tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Dr. Kelly,
Oh,
did you
wait,
want me to
sorry.
go over the new guidelines? I have 2 slides.
Oh, Dr. Gallucci, yes, sorry.
That's okay. All right.
Good.
So I'm going to transition us to new guidance that was provided from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. You may have heard about this, and I tried to really pull out the main points that were stressed in this new guidance. Some of the items in red really highlight our commitment to finishing this year in a safe manner and doing really what our school and district communities have done such a great job at since the fall. And that's being sure that we are following all the guidance, that we're erring on the side of caution, and that we're ensuring safety for each and every person that steps through our doors. So one of the items that was stressed in the new guidance, I know a lot of focus has been on the information where masks can now come off, but adults and students must continue to wear masks indoors while in school. So that's something that we are going to keep in place over the final weeks of school. If guidance in that area changes, we will certainly revisit, but right now in this new guidance, when students and staff are indoors in a classroom, they are still both required to wear a mask. It changes a bit when we go outdoors. So part of the new guidance is that students no longer have to, but we are certainly going to, if they would like to wear a mask, encourage them to do so. Wear masks when they are outdoors, even if distance cannot be maintained. And I want to stress that final part, that when we are outdoors, we are going to do our best to, of course, maintain the distancing that has been recommended. But students will now have the opportunity to not wear masks. And this applies to recess, physical education classes, and if someone were conducting their classes outdoors. Close contacts who were close to a positive individual while outdoors at recess, PE class, or outdoor class do not technically have to quarantine. However, as we've done all year long, we are going to continue our extensive interview process to make sure we have each and every detail of each and every case that may cause concern. At this time, adults must continue to wear their masks outdoors. Again, that's another item that, as the guidance changes, we will certainly revisit. Another big ticket item for our school programming is that students can now share objects in school, whereas in the past we had individual packets for each student, thinking about classroom materials, items that might be used in PE class, such as basketball or baseball, or art supplies such as paintbrushes, colored pencils, you name it. Shared items no longer have to be cleaned or disinfected between use, but we will certainly continue our cleaning processes throughout the school. And one item that we got clarification on this week is that students can indeed talk during lunch without a mask if they are greater than 6 feet away from one another. So the big change that happened a few weeks back is that the distance between students went from 6 feet to 3 feet. That did not change for lunches. So lunches has been and continues to be that students are 6 feet apart. And I know our administrators have done an excellent job alongside our food services program in coming up with creative ways to house lunches where students can be 6 feet apart from one another. Some advice that we got today in regards to athletics. This is brand new and something that kind of falls in line with what we've done as a school community and following the guidelines. Athletes on spring teams in active play for outdoor games are now not required to wear a mask or facial covering. If they are in the bench or dugout at these outdoor games, they are not required to wear a mask or facial covering. Athletes in lower sports when indoors, where the distance is 14 feet or more, and it's consistently maintained between each participant, are not required to wear a mask or facial covering. Spectators, chaperones, coaches, staffs, referees, umpires, and other officials who can social distance while outdoors are not required to wear a mask or face covering. Visitors, spectators, volunteers, and staff while indoors are required to wear a mask or facial covering. All athletes participating in high school sports are considered youth and fall under youth guidelines. So yesterday when the guidance was released, they referred to youth sports, and MIA still had not adopted these new guidelines. But as of today, the MIA did indeed adopt these guidelines. There are no changes to individual sport modifications. Those rules are going to remain in place. You may remember Mr. Shea's presentation a few months back in regard to what those modifications were. And the only change has been to the mask and facial covering mandate, and that's really geared towards outside sports.
Thank you, Dr. Galucci.
Any members have any questions or comments? Mr. Sinella.
Just one comment, that it's unfortunately, it's now 8 o'clock. I think that Dr. Galucci's presentation probably should have started us off while you had your full audience. This was very, very important to people, and I just hope that they hung in there. I think you'd be commended for having a summer program as thorough as this is going to be. It's like a regular part of the school year. Beyond my expectations, and again, let's give Caduce where it is. And I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sinella.
And if I could just say,
Dr.
if
Kelly.
you do hear of people who missed it, it is on the school committee's YouTube channel, so folks can watch it anytime they want from there.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. We'll move on to the student representative report. Ryan, you still on?
Sorry, Ryan, I think you broke up a little bit. Can you just try to repeat that again?
Can you promote the process and attendees to speak?
Ryan, unfortunately, you keep breaking up, and we can't actually hear what you're...
I think I might have heard him. I think he has to be promoted.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, now we can hear you just fine.
All right. And then can you just make
I
the
made you a
account that's already on
co-host.
so I can share my screen?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's two Ryans. Hold on, give me 1 second here. Okay, Ryan, you should be all set now.
Yep.
Just because I think Ryan might be talking from his other account. We
All
don't
right,
hear you, Ryan.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was all set.
Okay.
All right. So to start, for my regular updates, the end of the fall 2 seasons and the start of the spring sports seasons are upon us. From the perspective of an athlete, the fall 2 season went well, and for a lot of the other sports, it was great participation among students, and it was also a great bond and experience for a lot of students. We're very close to multiple GBL titles. Boys soccer did win a GBL title, and it's been a great experience. All the students that took part of it, and it's a great opportunity that our students are allowed to have. On top of this, another great point at this time of the year is the returns in full in-person schedule. We are 2 days in, and from the feedback that I've heard from students, it has been nothing but just a great experience at being able to be back. The energy in the building, it's really, you have to be there to feel it, and a lot of students are so happy to be back. And as far as the seniors, this is something that was very needed, and with APs this week, it's just great being back into the building and allowing to really connect with teachers and allow students to really get on top of those APs that could definitely help them in college. This was previously mentioned by Ms. Finn, but senior college acceptances, at this time of the year, a lot of senior students have been accepted to college and are very proud to show off where they're getting into and what their future paths are. So for any members of the community, any members of this committee who are interested in interacting with students and seeing where the students are actually going to in college or their future paths, you could visit at RHS 2021 Council on Twitter or at RHS student code 2021 on Instagram. And both of these social media platforms, what our student council has been doing is posting where the students are going and writing a little script about what they're majoring in and any other future plans. So it's just a great community involvement thing, learning more about where students are going and just really being proud of how our community is representing in the college world. End of the year activities for seniors. The biggest end of the year activity for seniors is the graduation. As of right now, it is our, I wouldn't say only, but it's our only certain plan that we have for senior events. I know there is talk of other ones, but as of right now, this is what we know for sure is happening. In light of the new guidance, a lot of seniors have been wondering of whether or not capacity at the stadium would change for the graduation. Feedback that I've heard from students is that 2 people per student at the graduation simply is not enough for many families. And under the new guidance, a lot of students are wondering whether or not they would be able to invite more people to the graduation, as this is the end of what has been a hectic year for lots of senior students and is really the only senior activity that senior students have left to grasp. I understand there's multiple factors that go into changing the current plan that we have for graduation, and I believe a lot of students understand that as well. However, I just want to clarify and make very prominent that students at IHS, especially the senior students, we do want more tickets, and if it is possible, that is obviously something that we are in light of and that we want. So if that doesn't happen, that's all right, but that's something that we're definitely pushing for, and that I hope that the powers that be, whoever they may be in charge of making that, whether it's the health department or the district, that they can possibly accommodate for extra tickets and make it more of a memorable experience for seniors and many of their families. And then going off from that, my outlook from the past 4 years, this is my last meeting, and I just want to start off and say I'm very grateful that I had this experience and that I was elected by my peers. This has been a very rewarding experience to me, and I've been very happy to share the opinions and the voices of my fellow students throughout this hectic year. The one thing I've noticed and one thing I want to leave the committee with is, as I've seen, talking with different students, especially at the middle school level that are coming up to high school and the grades below me, I do see there's a new wave of advocation upon students, and it is growing, and I believe it's going to grow stronger and stronger. Students want more of a voice in decision making now more than ever, and I believe this is a positive change in the student bodies of the future, and I think that through a supportive and transparent system, RPS can create a district that is even a stronger learning environment and a social environment. I truly do believe that in the years coming, students will take on an even increased role in advocating for what they believe in and advocating for what they want to see. And I hope that the district can just be as supportive to them as they were supportive to me. And I think that this will really help create a better sense of community and really just push along down the road that we want to see as a district, really connecting with students and really answering their voices, especially in a time where many students do not feel heard. Once again, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for me to share on this committee. It really has been rewarding, and I have learned a lot, and I really have felt proud to share the opinions and voices of other students. I know that their opinions and voices have been echoed and have been heard, and many students are happy with some of the paths that the district has taken and are now really feeling the rewards of all the hard work that from everybody in every position of power in the district has created and brought upon us. So I just want to say thank you to all the committee members, and thank you for everyone who supported me along the way. And I really do believe that new wave student advocacy is coming upon us, and we should embrace it. And the more students we can get involved possible, the better this district can be, and the more sense of community we can have. So on that note, I just want to say thank you, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ryan. Ms. Rizzo.
Oh, so Ryan, not only has it been a pleasure to work with you in this past year, it's also been a pleasure to watch what a fine young man you have grown into. I just know that we're gonna be seeing a lot more of you, and your input has been so valuable to us. But to let you know, I'm not done with you yet. I need some of your seniors for, some input and information. So, it's not gonna be the last time you hear from me, and I hope it's not the last time we hear from you. So thank you for everything that you've done for your fellow students, and thank you how you have helped us as adults on the school committee members, and you have truly been a pleasure to work with. Your parents must be very, very proud of you, like we are. So thank you, Ryan, for everything.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. If there's anything I or any other students can do for the committee, obviously I would look very upon helping out any way possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Any other members?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Ty?
I would, unfortunately, I haven't had enough of a chance to interact with Ryan, and I can only think of how the absence of that interaction has made me less. And I always love to hear from the kids and what they have to say. But Ryan, at each meeting, I always come out of there with something new from you. And that's a wonderful gift to all of us. You've represented your peers admirably. You must be such a source of pride to your family, and you certainly are to us. So I would say I wish you success, but I have no doubt at all that you will be extremely successful in whatever you choose to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ty, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Anyone else? Ryan, I'll thank you again for your voice and your work during a really challenging, difficult year. And we certainly appreciated hearing your voice and amplifying it in whatever way we could.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know we'll see more of you for sure. We'll move on now to public hearing on school choice. And that, to remind folks that are at home, school choice is the accepting non-resident students in the Revere Public School System, and the notice of the public hearing was given in accordance with the provisions of Section 61 of Chapter 71 of the Mass General Laws. And at this point, I will open up this public hearing on school choice for proponents. Any proponents?
Mr. Mayor, there are no attendees with their hands up on the Zoom.
Okay, seeing none, I will close that side of the hearing and move to opponents.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. You know, the school choice option is a great one for districts and communities that are experiencing decreased enrollment. That is not something that that's happening here in Revere. Certainly our enrollment has been down over this particular school year due to COVID, and that's something that districts across the Commonwealth have experienced. But we feel confident that many of those students are going to return to us next year, and we're going to find ourselves in the same unfortunate situation of having overcrowding at all of our schools. And for that reason, I would urge the committee to vote to not allow students from other districts to attend school in Revere, and vote against the school choice rule. Or I should say, vote against participating in school choice.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Any other opponents?
There actually is one on the Zoom, and so I'm going to elevate Mr. DeChico to speak on the matter.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly and Honorable School Committee. just Ralph Chico, 49 Washington Street, Revere, Mass. I just wanted to be put on the record as an opponent for school choice for almost the same reasons Dr. Kelly had stated. Even though our numbers were down this year, our numbers are usually characteristically up every year, and our enrollment is pretty much up there high, and it would be very tough for us to sustain any students coming from outside of the district.
Thank you, Mr. DeChico. Any other opponents?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sinella.
I move at this time that the Revere School Committee go on record as opposing school choice.
Second?
So we will take a roll call, and just to clarify, a yes vote would support not having students from other districts come to school in Revere.
So I actually have some wording, if I could give it to
Sure,
Mr. Sinella,
that's
he
fine.
could read this.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Mr. Sinella.
as the maker of the original motion, with the approval of the second, read the following, that we, the Revere School Committee, vote no on accepting students in the Revere Public Schools by voting not to participate in school choice. A yes vote would support not having students from other districts come to the school in Revere. Have a second to the motion?
Second.
Second from Ms. Ty, so there'll be a roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yeah, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella. I can't hear him.
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Okay. We will move on to the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
So move.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Move on to the report of subcommittees. Mrs. Rizzo.
Thank you, Mayor. We spoke earlier with the Equity Advisory Group, and I had spoken about having a meeting in about 2 weeks. I want to say that MASC is holding a workshop on Monday, May 24th at 5:30. It will be on the diversity, inclusion, and equity, and it's in the hope it will give us ideas for initiatives that we may implement to achieve all our goals. The great part about this workshop is we're going to have wonderful people like Framingham's Assistant Superintendent, Joseph Karazi, and also Chelsea Superintendent Dr. Abeda, who have done a tremendous amount of work on this in their districts. So I'm hoping they'll be able to help us with some of the initiatives, and I am asking if at least the subcommittee for diversity, inclusion, and equity can maybe join me, and if not, all, only because I can only take in so much information in this little brain, so the more the merrier. And I will send out the link to everyone just to give them an opportunity to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Any other subcommittee reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to old business, which I do not believe there is any. Oh, oh, my apologies. Okay, Mrs. Rizzo.
So, Anthony, it's that late communication. Do you have a copy of that? If not, I do.
Yes, I believe it was forwarded to me. Which late communication specifically, Ms. Rizzo?
This would be from Dr. Stacy Mulligan.
The donation from the Friends of Seacoast.
Mr. D'Ambrosio, it is from when we talked about the donations for the Seacoast students.
Yes, I know exactly. Okay, here we are. Fantastic. I can read it if that's all right, Ms. Rizzo. Okay. Dear Dr. Kelly and the RPS school committee members, as has been the case for a number of years, Friends of Seacoast High School wish to contribute money to the district in order to fund a career readiness project at Seacoast, whereby any Seacoast senior who graduates and meets a number of additional requirements, which primarily entail writing a career research essay, receives a payment of $300. The donors feel that funding this program in the past has been worthwhile, and they wish to continue this funding for this coming graduating class. Their hope is that, as has been the case in the past, the checks can be presented to the students who complete the requirements at graduation. This year we have 4 seniors that are completing the career readiness project. The names of the students are as follows: Jennifer Portillo, Nick Benjamin, Kobe Patterson, Hajar Baizoni. Please let me know if I can provide further information. The check has already been sent to Seacoast. I can drop it off at the business office. Thank you so much for your attention. Best, Dr. Stacy Mulligan.
If I could speak to that for just a minute.
Dr. Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I want to thank Mark Johnson, who's one of our teachers at Seacoast, and it's actually friends of his who have been sustaining this program for a number of years now, and every year there are at least some students who benefit from just their plain generosity to help kids who are struggling academically or in other ways complete a big research project and get paid a little bit of money for it that makes that much of a difference to them in their lives. It might mean buying books in their first semester of college, or making a down payment on a used car, or some other thing that's going to help them after graduation. And we're just incredibly thankful to all of them for being so generous with our students. And thank you to Mr. Johnson for making that connection for us.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Do we have a motion? I think we do. Motion made by Mr. Sinella. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Franti seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Scravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
I can't hear him.
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. We'll now move on to new business. None. School committee interests. Any members have any school committee interests? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to motions. Mr. D'Ambrosio?
I can do the first motion if you want.
Okay, Dr. Kelly.
It's a request that you approve the 2021-2022 calendar, which I presented with you all a week or so, maybe a couple weeks ago. I can't remember now. But just to outline the draft calendar for the community at large, and we will, upon approval of the school committee, post this publicly for parents and students to look at. But it features a return to school for staff on August 24th and a return to school for students on August 25th. That first week of school for students would be a 3-day week. And the following week, as has been our custom and by contract with the Revere Teachers Association, is a 4-day week with Friday, September 3rd, the Friday before Labor Day, being a no-school day. The rest of the calendar follows in a traditional sense. There is one uniqueness on September 14th, which is a primary election day in the city of Revere. We've moved our traditional Wednesday half-day to Tuesday to decrease the volume of people in schools on that voting day. And on Election Day, which is November 2nd, there will be no school for students. That would be a professional development day for staff, which we would engage in with the 5 districts of which we are partners. Other than that, I think it's fairly routine projecting this out this way. The last day of school would be June 14th, which is a Tuesday next year, and that anticipates no school days, or as Mr. Ferranti pointed out earlier, if there are snow days and the state gives us provisions to conduct those as remote learning days, then that would maintain that final last day of school as June 14th.
Well, I move that we approve the school calendar for the school year 2021-2022 as presented to us by the superintendent.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Ty and seconded by Mrs. Rizzo. Roll call.
Mrs. Brownston Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio? He dropped off the Zoom. I'm watching for him.
Okay.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravelisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo?
Yes. The next motion is a,
Excuse me, Mayor, point of
Mrs. Rizzo.
personal privilege
Mrs. Rizzo.
to the superintendent. I've had many people this week and last week ask about extended days for next year, and if there will be any plan to reinstate that.
So with the expanded learning time grants that we used to have that allowed us to have a longer school day at the Garfield Middle, the Wayland Elementary, and the Hill Elementary, that grant has not been funded in any of the budgets that we've seen so far from the state. We don't anticipate that to change. We think that the thought process at the state level is that we should be using our Student Opportunity Act funding for that, which is not really a viable option for us because there's not enough money to make all of our schools expanded learning time, and it really wouldn't be fair to use our citywide district budget to hyper-fund, if you will, 3 of our 11 schools, especially when the poverty levels and the number of English learner students and the number of students with special needs is pretty static across all of our schools. It wouldn't make sense to identify 3 that we were going to fund at greater levels than the other schools. So for that reason, no, we will not be having expanded learning time next school year.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a motion to encumber $190 for invoice number PBO 01690000068 to Hill International for the period dated November 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sinella.
through you to the superintendent. Apparently, we owe them a sum of money, and they're gonna nickel and dime it 2 hours at a time. What do they do for the 2 hours?
So this invoice is actually over a 4-month period. And it was a couple of hours. They had paperwork to do relative to a lawsuit between the city of Revere and the contractor who did the work on the Hill School. But the city, I understand, recently came to an agreement on that matter, and I don't anticipate that there'll be further bills from Hill International, although, as with all legal matters, some follow-up paperwork might be necessary that would result in another similar small bill for the paperwork they have to gather and collect as part of that legal proceeding.
Thank you.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Next motion is the motion to approve payment for invoice number PB O 01690000068 in the amount of $190 to Hill International for the period dated November 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. Next item on the agenda is a motion to encumber $21,000 for invoice number 0001-0000 to Left Field LLC for FS Phase Project Management Services, the period dated March 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
So moved.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the
Second.
bill that we have says April 1st to April 30th. I have one from Left Field, and I got a memorandum from Mac Cruz.
The memo says that it's March 2021 invoice
You
summary.
have this one, though? I know, I see that one, but this one.
That may be an error on the
Okay.
memo, so
Okay,
that
that's
should be April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021. So the motion as amended,
Just change the date.
yep, as amended, with April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Finally, a motion to approve payment for invoice number 001-0000 to Left Field LLC for FS Phase Project Management Services for the period dated April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. I just want to take a moment before we do adjourn to say it was nice to see my colleagues in person, face to face. This is the first time we've done it in 15 months, and the first time that we've done it in a hybrid setting, so I hope those at home are bearing with us. It is good to see all of you again, as I said, and look forward to more meetings in person and more opportunities to get out and about. So with that, we will adjourn until our next regular meeting in June. Thank you.
Thank you.